Welcome to the Wounds of the Faithful podcast, brought to you by DSW Ministries. Your host is singer, songwriter, speaker, and domestic violence advocate Diana Winkler. She is passionate about helping survivors in the church heal from domestic violence and abuse and trauma. This podcast is not a substitute for professional counseling or qualified medical help. Now, here is Diana.
Hi everyone, how are you today? I'm glad that you're here with me. For those that are watching on YouTube, I have a new camera today. My old one kind of bit the dust and just got a new one, so hope I'm looking good for you guys. It's definitely high definition for sure. You could see my face very clearly. Probably too clearly. I could see my flaws, imperfections, whatnot. But hey, I'm an authentic person. There's no filters on here. Yes, this is my skin. I've not done any work to it. No Botox, nothing like that. It's just me. I don't use AI for very much at all for the podcast. I just started using it for maybe summarizing show notes, but that's pretty much it. But anyway, that's what's new here on the show. I do have a great guest for you today. Those of you that have been listening for a long time on the podcast, we've had Shayna Rattler back on episode 6. Yeah, that was second season, talking about what is a God shift. Well, she contacted me and said her husband has written a new book about prayer and that she asked if I would have him on the podcast. So me and Shayna had such a great time that I was happy to have her husband, Ronald Davis, on the show. He is a survivor of abuse from, looks like, his first wife. His journey in prayer helped him to heal and prepare him for what God had next for him. So we're going to be talking about his upbringing and his ministry, of course, his story of abuse and how prayer played a big part in his recovery. And that's something that we all need more of, is prayer. Such a touchy topic for a survivor to talk, for a survivor, because we're going through this transition of going through all this abuse and coming out of it. And abuse always affects our relationship with God, especially our communication with God. Many of us are on the couch, or we're not really sure about where do I stand on the subject of my faith. And that's okay. That's what the podcast is for, is we talk about these topics and we wrestle together for the answers. What does the Bible say about prayer? How does God feel about us? He wants to communicate with us and fellowship with us. And yes, we are asking for things with prayer, but we're also sometimes just sitting and listening. And it's hard after you've been through an abusive relationship or you're still in one. It's hard to hear God's voice in the midst of the noise around you. So we're going to definitely talk that out today. So Ronald's book is called Thy Kingdom Come, The Purpose and Power of Prayer. And you can purchase that on Amazon. I am going to include the link in the show notes, of course. So I'll read what the book's about here. In this book, Ronald Davis takes you on a transformative journey into the heart of God's kingdom and the undeniable role of prayer in unlocking its power. This book is more than just a guide. It is a call to deeper intimacy with God, a rediscovery of identity, and an invitation to experience the fullness of His purpose for your life. Through insightful revelation and biblical reference, you will explore the different dimensions of prayer and how to communicate with God effectively. Learn the key stages of personal and spiritual transformation that align you with God's will. Understand the foundational connection between knowing your identity in Christ and walking in kingdom power. Discover the life-changing impact of intimacy with God on every area of your life. Whether you're a new believer or a seasoned leader, Thy Kingdom Come will empower you to deepen your relationship with God and live out His kingdom purpose in every aspect of your life. Embrace the power of prayer. Embrace the purpose of the kingdom. Let your life be a reflection of His glory. All right, sounds pretty good. So enjoy my conversation with Ronald Davis. I'm so excited to welcome Ronald Davis on the show. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's definitely an honor to be here. I appreciate you for having me.
So I was saying to the audience before you came on that you are Shayna Rattler Davis's husband. So when she reached out, it was very exciting that you wrote a book about prayer and that you'd like to come on the show. So any friend of Shayna is a friend of mine. So you said you were only married for 5 months so far. And
Yeah.
all right. How did you guys meet?
Well, believe it or not, a mutual mentor of ours, he reached out to me one day and he said that he wanted to introduce me to someone. He said he thought about her about a year or so ago before he called me. He said when he thought of her, he thought of me, but he knew at that time that I wasn't, by the leadership of the Holy Spirit, he just knew it wasn't time yet. So after a year or so, and what's funny is during that year, I was in a deep consecration and fasting before the Lord and seeking God. So after the year of that is when he called me, and he felt like it was now that time to make that introduction. And once we met, we've just been inseparable ever since.
Oh, that sounds fun. Now, I'd like to get into a little bit about your history, your ministry, how you were raised. Were you raised in a Christian home?
I was. I was raised in a Christian home, but I was also raised in a very low income area. So it was two different worlds I was exposed to. My mom kept us in church. I got home to a father that was strung out on crack cocaine, and I had older brothers and siblings that were also contributors of drugs. So I was like, I lived in a house, in an environment of drugs and fighting and just being exposed to gangs in that lifestyle, that
Mm.
street lifestyle, that the hood lifestyle, what people would refer to it as. But my mom put us in church. So we knew all the Bible stories. We used to receive prophecies as children. I remember receiving a prophecy that I was going to be a preacher. My mom would throw it at my face at times, but when I was acting a fool and I wanted to do my own thing. But now look, I'm now writing books and glorifying Jesus many years later. But yeah, so that's the kind of short version of my household coming up.
When did you meet the Lord?
So I became serious about my relationship with God when I was about 16 years old. So from the time of, I say, about 12, my mom stopped making us go to church, and I got more involved in, like, as a young person, in streets, sinning, using drugs, trying to sell drugs, trying to adapt this lifestyle that was around me. I was never a good fit for it, though. I'll be honest. I do wrong and feel bad. It just wasn't a good fit for me. I always knew my whole life that I was different. I remember having the
Mm.
gun put to my face, and when I was about 14, 15 years old. And if there was ever a time I ever heard, the
Oof.
first time I ever heard the voice of God, it was that day. I could hear as clear as day. You can't die. I got work for you to do.
Mm.
And I wasn't even saved at the time. But that moment stuck with me to this very day. So I knew the hand of God was on my life, maybe because of the upbringing in church, but I always knew God's hand was on my life. But I just thought it would be later in life that I would serve the Lord. But at 16, I went to a revival. Well, just before I turned 16, I went to the revival and I seen people being healed. I seen children giving their lives to Christ, and the message was powerful, and the man of God was amazing. And I wanted to be a part of what the Lord was doing. So I did an altar call and I gave my life to Christ, and my life changed. People in my neighborhood saw me change. My school seen me change. So I went to being this bad kid in school to being the kid who was preaching in the hallways telling people about Jesus. So it was a wonderful experience. I mean, and it's been a journey like everyone else. After we get saved, even that's sometimes when the story really begins.
Right.
You know.
I love hearing people's stories of how they came to Christ. They're all different, and yours is no exception. When you came to Christ, when was the first time you actually understood the concept of prayer? I mean, talking to God, was that a natural thing for you or a foreign concept?
Well, we've always taught the prayer in the church, but they didn't teach prayer like I know prayer now. They taught us we should pray, but
Uh-huh.
they didn't really model prayer. I didn't know the way of consistent prayer. I didn't know the way of long prayer. So I would say my little daily prayers. And as a young believer, just a level of zeal and hunger that we have for God. So we spend a lot more time praying, even not praying as much as I do now, but what I thought prayer was, I did it to the best of my ability, but more so for me, I was given to the word of the Lord. Like my first few years of salvation, I would read the Bible for hours. That was my way of communing with God, just studying the scriptures. By the time I was 18 years old, I was reading systematic theology by Charles Hodge. I was going deep in theology and breaking down the historical
Mhm.
background of the text. So before I was even 20, you would think I had went to seminary and I never did. I just was so deep in the word. So that was the journey that God took me first. It's almost like He wanted me to get that word foundation. And then my journey into prayer, as far as the place of prayer that I'm in now, was relatively later in life. So from that point.
I have that book. That systematic theology book is
Oh, okay.
wonderful. I had that through Bible college, so definitely got a lot of meat in that book. I still have it on my shelf. I do know that you were married before to your first wife. Tell us as much as you're comfortable with what happened there. How did you meet her, and what was the relationship like with her?
Absolutely. So that's a long story. I will give you the short version of it.
Oh yeah, whatever you want to do.
I met my wife in the church community. So we know each other from church. We served each other. We served each other in ministry. We took a liking into each other. I was really strong in the word, strong in theology. She had a strong prophetic gift. And it seemed like we were just a good fit. The things that I would be studying, she would know by intuition, like she just would know by prophetically. And she was very gifted. And then I was very rich in the word, but I wouldn't consider myself like as prophetic as I am now. And so, make a long story short, when we kind of took a liking to each other and we decided to get married, that's when the journey really began. Where I realized that you can have extremely gifted people, but hurt people. And that's not just a cliche, it's actually true. When the people have deeply rooted issues, it's hard for them to be loved and it's hard for them to love. So we had went through a season when I remember the first encounter where we got into an argument and disagreement. And before you know it, somebody's throwing a blow. I mean, got punched in my face. And I was in shock because
Yikes.
this woman of God, this person I just married, who I was so excited about, I think so highly of, lost control. So, and when the
Mhm.
things first, stuff like this start happening, obviously you're in shock. But then because we're Christians, we try to be forgiving as much as possible. Now we're in this marriage. We don't believe in divorce. So you figure, okay, I'm going to love her through her pain. And many people think this, I'm going to love them through it. But in all actuality, it's like if two people get some serious help, you can't love them through it. It just sets the stage for continuous abuse later. You know, what you may not want it, but if you tolerate it over time, what happens is now you begin to see yourself unconsciously as one that's worthy of such behavior. You know what I'm saying? Because what tells me that you feel like it's okay is because you stay. And I'll come back to that point later. But anyway, make a long story short, there was physical abuse, there was emotional abuse, there was psychological, spiritual abuse. There was a lot of different things going on. And I'm not by any means trying to paint the picture that I was perfect in this marriage because I wasn't.
Right, right.
I was developing. I wasn't as secure in my prayer life as I am now. So I was doing a lot
Mhm.
religiously. I was doing a lot trying to figure it out. I was doing a lot in the name of trying to love a person through it. I went through 7 years of a marriage, and I can't remember 9 months of 90 days of consecutive peace.
I
You know,
understand that.
it was hard.
Me too.
It was just so hard. And as much as you prayed, as much as you tried to get through it, it's like it was always something. Something just was never, it was never good enough. So after that, after everything we went through and the different financial hardship, I was the only source of income. There's a lot. I'm giving you the short version of the story, but there was a lot
Mhm.
that I suffered. There was a lot that she suffered. There was a lot that we went through together trying to make it work. And it got to the point which eventually we separated due to financial hardship. And in that
Mhm.
separation, I was blocked. I couldn't see my daughter, blocked me on that, all the emails. And one thing I noticed about certain people with abusive personalities is they like to cut off all ties of communication. It's one of the ways
Mm.
that they inflict harm, whether they're doing it intentionally or not. It's that narcissistic personality. It's one of the ways that inflicts harm. They now feel like you're going to suffer. I'm going to withdraw my presence from you, and it makes you feel less valued because not you feel like you were the one done wrong, and then they're treating you as if you were the one that treated them the way you felt like you've been treated. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So in that,
Exactly.
during that time of separation, with no communication, I was able to find myself. I was able to see, like, what is it about me that made it okay? Because even if this was going to ever work, it wasn't going to work like this. It wasn't going to work. Yeah. So after all of that, not having access to my daughter, coming out of that relationship, coming out of that marriage, I was broken. I didn't really want to do ministry anymore because we was doing ministry together. I didn't want to do
Yeah.
ministry anymore. I still wanted God. I just didn't want ministry. So I was like, God, I needed to go through this process of healing. So I stopped going live on Facebook. I stopped ministering, and I just began to shut down and just start working. And I went away from where I was staying. Went back home. Felt like I needed to restore relationships, strengthen relationships back home that would have been strained because of my relationship in this other marriage. So during that
Hmm.
time, somebody invited me to preach, one of my friends, and they didn't realize that's where my healing process started. Because it's like
Wow.
once I started preaching and I saw God use me even in my brokenness, it's like I realized that okay, like this is what I'm here for. And I begin to seek God in worship, I began to seek God in prayer, but still not at the level that I needed to. And there's many times
Mm.
during this period of time, I really felt like I hated her. I felt like, and then it was times where I couldn't see my daughter. So I felt that was really making me feel like I hate her. And after all of that, when I went on a deep consecration after some time had passed, we ain't talking a while, but I just decided, I'm not going to date. I filed for divorce. We were separated with divorce. She signed, and it was a gap in time where I actually first started seeing my daughter. But I really began to seek God and just left that whole situation in his hands. And I began to cry out to
Mm.
the Lord. I mean, I would fast and I would pray. I would pray from 10 to 3 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes I'll pray 5, 6, 7 hours straight, just praying and seeking God, laying before him. And it was during that period of time that God really began to deal with me. He began to
Mm.
heal me. Like I would spend hours crying. I didn't know you could cry that many tears. And it wasn't all
Oh.
tears of sadness. It was tears of
Mm.
restoration. It was tears of joy. It was like a cleansing. It was a deep, and God was reminding me that I am his child. He's reminding me of who I am in spite of what I've been through. And I think the biggest challenge sometimes is to not identify yourself with your pain, not identify yourself with a disappointment. Because how another person treats you doesn't mean that's who you are. That just means how they treated you. So, but in that
Yep.
process of seeking God, God begins to restore me. And in that process of restoration, I was able to truly to forgive from my heart. Because what God did is he took me back to the time that she was a child and began to show me what it felt like to be an abandoned child, what it felt like to be an abused child, what it felt like to go through different foster care systems and nobody coming to your rescue. So he began to show me,
Mm.
he says, don't take it personal. She's hurting. And at that given moment, I cry with a deep cry and I begin to like really just forgive. And it was that journey of forgiveness and complete in wholeness that God was taking me through that was preparing me for what was coming. So I want to let you jump in because I don't want to talk too much. if you have any questions.
Oh, I think you're saying your story very eloquently, hitting a lot of points that I can relate to. And I think I mentioned to you that we have male listeners on the podcast that are survivors that are listening, as well as the women. And they're just starting to get exposure that men do suffer from abuse also.
Hmm.
How did you feel as a man going through abuse? You touched a little bit in general, but as a man, did you get any kind of pushback from your community, your friends, your church about, oh, well, men don't get abused. You're the man of the house. You're supposed to be in charge, blah, 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 blah. What was that like?
Well, the thing about most abusive relationships is you're in isolation.
Yes,
You're
that's
in
right.
isolation to protect your own image, and also because you also want to protect the image of the person you're trying to keep, especially when you're in ministry. You don't want people to see
Yes.
her in the light of her flaws. You try to keep people seeing her in the light of her gifts and her calling, right? So, in a lot of times, what happens when you're a part of an abusive relationship of any kind, there's an isolation. There's a pulling away from those who love you. You're not telling everybody your situation, even if they've seen some of it from a distance. They don't know if it's continuing or not because you're not sharing that information. And most men, we don't like to talk. We don't like to tell people what we're going through. We kind of go through it ourselves. Meanwhile, we're feeling broken. We're feeling devalued. We're feeling disrespected. We're feeling unworthy. And no matter how anointed we are, no matter how handsome we are, when you go through something like that, it makes you feel like less than a man. You feel like your manhood has been taken from you. And what happens is when you're dealing with a certain personality, if you're not careful, you will lose your voice. And one of the last things that you can ever do and still expect respect from a woman, for a man, is to lose your voice. Because if you lose your voice,
Mhm.
you no longer lead. So,
Mhm.
and to keep the peace, sometime we'll keep silent. So I didn't get a whole lot. I mean, some family members who knew what I went through. I mean, my best friend, he was like, "Bro, I don't even know why you went back," type thing. Like he was on this. I should have ended it a long time ago. Like he had a different perspective on it altogether. But other than that, but there wasn't much from that perspective as far as a lot of pushback from the community or negative talk because a lot of people didn't know the extent of what I was going through to after even to this day, a lot of people still don't know the extent. They just know my marriage didn't work.
Yeah, I was in full-time ministry with my ex, who was my main abuser, and the same thing. I put on the mask. I'm in ministry. I have to have it all together. I need to protect my reputation and even the church's reputation. And I didn't like the way I was treated. The church denomination I was in devalued women and their contributions, and it was submit, and that's the only role you have is to do what you're told. And when I wanted to get out, the church told me I couldn't. That is why I stayed and put up with it, because the church said, well, you're going to get excommunicated, you're going to lose your ministry, you're going to lose your friends, and you're going to have to start all over again. And that's exactly what happened. But I left because I couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, I don't care anymore. I'm getting out. There's only so much you can stomach, and then you wake up one day, it's like, I can't live like this anymore. And God, I know you're up there. I haven't been praying for a few years now because I don't think you're listening. And but I'm getting out and taking the consequences of whatever happens if they shun me or kick me out for being divorced. So be it. I'll find another ministry. Well, I was like you. I didn't want to go back into ministry either. My ministry now is very different than church planting that I was doing before. But yeah, so I can relate to a lot of the things that you were saying. Some parallels there.
I think the church has done a disservice, for the most part, the religious community has done a disservice when it comes to matters like this. And believe it or not, we protect the abuser more than we protect the person that's being abused. And this whole idea of just work it out, work it out, work it out. And they're not understanding the full weight of what's going on. Like when people have that, and I believe in deliverance, but I truly believe one of the hardest spirits to get rid of is that narcissistic, abusive personality that grows out
Mm-hmm.
of an orphan spirit. Because that spirit oftentimes is that people are so far gone that even though they're conscious of what they're doing to you, they don't actually see themselves as being a bad person.
Right.
You're making me lose control. You're pushing me to this point. And
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the times they're very intellectual, they're very gifted, they're likable to the average person. So people are like, yeah, you just gotta work it out. I mean, every marriage have tough problems. No, I am being abused. I am being
Yeah.
manipulated. I am being controlled. God did not create us to be controlled. This is why we always end up feeling some level of depression or a level of unsettling in our belly anytime you're under control, because you're not wired to function that way. And it's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of time that that dominion in us just ride and say, I can't take no more. I got to get, because I know that God did not design me to be in control. Unfortunately, we have the enemy sometimes arrange marriages,
Mm-hmm.
kill
Yeah.
destinies, and then he used religion to keep you in it. You can't get
Yeah.
divorced. He can't. So he'll use scriptures to kind of keep you in something that he is the author of. Because God
Mm-hmm.
is not the author of abuse. God is not the author of confusion. God is not
That's
the
right.
author of disrespect. If my husband is not good and perfect for me, it didn't come from God. I
Yep.
have to know the word and be confident enough in the word to know that every good and perfect gift comes from above. I don't care how gifted, I don't care how anointed they appear, I don't care how intellectual they may be. If they're abusing me, they're manipulating me, controlling me, that was not
Mm-hmm.
from God.
Yes, exactly.
It's something I
Thanks for
accept and I have
saying
to
that.
give myself. I'm not going to say God gave me this person.
Well, folks, this is a great place to stop our conversation. I know you want to hear more on prayer and how actually to commune better with God. So be sure to be with us next time on the Winds of the Faithful podcast. I wish you a great week. God bless you, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Wounds of the Faithful podcast. If this episode has been helpful to you, please hit the subscribe button and tell a friend. You can connect with us at dswministries.org, where you'll find our blog along with our Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel links. Hope to see you next week.